Go ahead, Danielle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a correction on page 12. If it could just say Danielle talked about new roads being made along the river at the Locust site and no signage being there.
Anything else? Motion by Martin to approve the minutes from 27th, second by Tom with changes. All in favor? Very unanimous. We do have an agenda for today. James.
Yeah, you know, I wasn't here, but I read the minutes and I'm comfortable with the actions that were taken, so I voted to approve.
Thank you, James. We have one walk-in. Any other additions to the agenda? Tom? James? Oh. Carol? He's our walk-in.
Morning, Leroy.
Entertain a motion to accept the agenda with additions. Motion by Carol. Second by Tom. All in favor? Unanimous. Come on up, Leroy. Good morning. Hey, Len.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and rest of the council members. I just wanted to give you guys an update on my son, Terrence Lozo. I don't know how many of you know, he's got the petition going, help with the skate parks. Carol noticed Terrence with his petition, and we got some exciting news. He was trying to go to NIC, North Idaho College, and their accreditation's in jeopardy. Their review is up in February, so he decided not to go to NIC because he didn't want to redo all the work over to another school. So he was kind of bummed out. Tried to talk him into going to SKC. And then in the meantime, the Arley opening of the skate park. So Carol put him in touch with Jeff Ament. And so him and Jeff were talking at the opening, and Jeff was asking what he was going to do for school because he heard that he wasn't going to go to NIC. So he didn't know yet. So Jeff said, wait here, went and got Whitney Williams. And then they came back and asked Terrence, what do you think of U of M? Because I like it, but it's too expensive. So they offered to pay for him to go to the U of M. Then it wasn't too much longer. Terrence called Whitney and said that he couldn't leave his friend Justin Velasco. They grew up together. Justin lived with us for the last about year and a half. And they go everywhere together. So they decided to pay for both Justin and Terrence for the U of M, their tuition for the year. If there was no dorm available, they were going to get them an apartment. Whitney just helped get them all set up with school, their meals and everything, got them and checked into a dorm. So I just wanted to share that with you guys because it's, you know, from the skate park and with the help with Carol introducing them to Jeff, getting this movement forward. And I think you guys should hear it. And I'm not sure which, if it was the Skateboard Association or the owners of the skate shop, but they also sent Terrence, Justin, Orrin, and Clint to Pennsylvania in the beginning of July. Oh yeah, in the middle of July, for a skate camp for a week. They paid for everything for all four of them, even Yvette to fly with them because they wasn't old enough. They weren't 18. So this, I believe it's this weekend as well. The same group is sending Terrence and Justin to Seattle for something to do with skateboarding. plus they're paying for, you know, everything, plus giving them $500. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. I know you guys probably don't hear a lot of good news, but this is really good. You know, for some people to pay for Terrence, not only him and his friend to go to school. And I believe during this adventure with Terrence, he's also got a documentary. I don't know when that's coming out. Yvette can elaborate more on it, more than I can.
It's called it's on PBS, The Back Roads of Montana. And we met with Bree and Brianna, I apologize. And she'll let us know when that's going to be done and when it'll air. So yeah, and I just wanted to take this opportunity right now to thank you all and huge. It's really unbelievable. Justin's dad can't believe it, but we really think the connections and your support, tribal council support, and the involvement with the skate parks. And yeah, it's his passion. Thank you guys for your help.
That's excellent. Really good news. Go ahead, Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And, you know, if there's a skateboard heaven, skate park heaven, that's where Jeff's going. Ain't no doubt about that. But, you know, I'm glad you came in because it really demonstrates that positivity. When you project and you do positive things, I believe in karma. And, you know, good things will come your way. So, you know, it starts at home and the leadership of you two for your children. And, you know, and its entire community. And you never know where things will lead. You just never know. And it's a positive thing. And so I'm glad you came in and reported. Congratulate him and his friend. And what a good opportunity. Thank you.
Go ahead, Carol.
Yeah, I want to say that, you know, it's the full council that allowed this to go forward. And I remember the first time we met with Jeff, it was myself, Tom, Joe Durglow, Jimmy Molitaire, you know, all of us sit in that little room, not really sure, you know, how this was going to all work. Cause you know how when you start getting into NEPA and all that kind of stuff, I could just see it never happening. And it just happened so easily. And I think it was a godsend. That's why the creator was watching over these skate parks to make sure they got done for our kids. And so, yeah, and Jeff he is absolutely amazing. And so is Whitney and Lucy to work with. I mean, they were so easy. So I'm looking forward to this next skate park for Pablo, because I think it'll do a lot for our kids too. So, and I'm just so happy for Terrence, and I just felt so bad. I forgot. Whitney goes, "Don't forget Terrence," and then I forgot Terrence at the Arlie to announce him, and then we brought him up, you know. But anyway, yeah, we're doing some amazing things, and also me and Leroy are working on some sheds for the skate parks, and there's 3 sheds behind the People Center, and he's the one that found them. And we thought we would check with one of the ARPA contractors to see what it would take to remodel those. There's one with the door tore off and they need painting and moved, of course. And these sheds would go to each one of these locations to store the stuff that is used to care for the skate parks and the parks in general, because the Ronan's gonna have more than just the skate park there. So we thought if we could store our stuff in the sheds, but we're gonna check with the contractors on a bid to see what it's gonna cost to redo those rather than buy new ones. So just wanted to give that update also. Thank you, Leroy. Thank you. Yvette.
Go ahead, James.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, just echo all of the comments that were made. Definitely an awesome opportunity for the young folks. So glad you all are excited. We're excited. They're excited. All good to hear. And he was going to go to North Idaho College. Is that where? Yeah, I've been kind of watching the news, all of the controversy there at North Idaho College. It's just, yeah, basically from my understanding, they've got some very right-wing minded people there on the board of that college, and it's just basically tearing the college up, and their accreditation is at risk at the moment. So, but yeah, but anyway, good news in terms of your folks, so thank you.
Excellent. Good to hear.
Thank you, guys. Have a good day.
Yeah,
Yes.
you guys have a great day too.
Thank
We
you.
really bet. Oh,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This has regard to our last meeting in discussion with Medicare B. Just a point of clarity, the last consensus we had from council was July 9th. The deadline, we'd implement something on to October 1st with a recommended reimbursement rate of 50%. That was the last time council, during council session, talked about it that way. But we've also talked about it in the executive session in our health committee meetings numerous times. But Joe has reached out to me and would like to meet. I just want to respond to him to come in and meet with all of us. Because, you know, it's a topic that everybody should be involved with, not just me. I mean, let's take advantage of this Medicare B, a federal program for insurance. I mean, let's do it. And so if that helps move things along, I'll just respond back to him to have come in and meet with all of us. So everybody knows what's going on. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Pardon? July 9th was the last time, but we met with, we brought it up with Patricia, and then after that we had another health committee meeting, and yeah, so there's been some direction, but you know, I appreciate Joe's, you know, conservative nature and want to make sure things are done, but you know, we've entered this and we're doing it, and let's just try to do it to the maximum benefit to every eligible tribal member.
I think Joe's looking at the numbers and kind of realizing it might not even break even is what I think he might be looking at. So that's the question I think he has.
Yeah, there's lots of questions. I mean, obviously, to go with insurance for our membership for healthcare is a proven methodology. And we're doing it right now, not just Medicare B, we're doing it with many things. And Obamacare allowed that to happen. Otherwise, we would be breaking the bank of tribal health. So my philosophy has always been that the insurance that I pay for myself, and if we can afford that insurance for every tribal member, that's the best healthcare we can provide to our membership, to go wherever we want to have the best doctors and the best service. And so if we have a hybrid of that, where we're providing services locally that we can manage and provide and collect that insurance through that process, that's the win-win that I'm after. So when I think about expanded insurance that we provide for our people, how can we pick out some of those services that Medicare B is going to pay for, and we provide that ourselves, charge it, comes back as third-party revenue to help pay for the premium. And so there's numerous items like that, but I think it's proven to be valuable to tribal health right now with the number of people that are already on it and the other insurances they're providing for other people, not even counting those. I don't know how many more there are. It could be double what we're talking about. And I just think it's a good way to go. I don't see any downside to it. And so I'm going to keep advocating for it until I'm not sitting in this chair. And when I'm not sitting in this chair, I'll be in the audience advocating for it, because it's just the same thing. It's just like Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. We take advantage of it or we don't take advantage of it. It's a service provided that we need to, you know, expose our greatest people to and benefit to our membership. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
James.
Yeah, just gonna echo that comment. I think even if, you know, I guess the big thing is trying to understand where the department is and what their concerns are. Went to Saturday, I was at the memorial for Will Wyndham. He was on the appellate court for a number of years, and he was appointed during the early 2000s. And he was the Chief Justice, acting Chief Justice for probably a year or two after Joe Moran died. Basically a small gathering at Gene Wyndham, his wife's home, and son and grandson were there, and I bought some flowers when I got to Portland. I Martin found a vase and I forgot it. But when I got to Portland, I went to a flower shop there, so trying to figure out the name of it because I grabbed the receipt and I can't find it, so. But it was good. She's gonna send an appreciation card and thank you to us for that. The family was very appreciative. I think that's the main, oh, and then Tuesday I was on a SAMHSA Technical Advisory Committee meeting, probably till about 4 o'clock. And it was my first SAMHSA TTAC meeting on Zoom. And basically I ended up having to manage the Zoom people trying to get the floor and such. Cause our chairman of the thing, she was on her phone and couldn't see all the folks. I jumped in and tried to police that. So the in-person meeting is in Lummi towards the end of September. So thank you.
Thank you, James. Just trying to get my agenda back up. It went away. Who's first on the agenda today? Don? We go. We're a little ahead of schedule, it looks like. Anybody need a break?
Can I ask some questions, Mr. Chair?
Go ahead, James.
Yeah, and I don't know if it should be an executive, probably should be. Just want to ask a land question about some prices and stuff. So maybe executive, I guess.
We'll go out of regular into,
You know, I know you occasionally have a few extra cats.
yeah, there you go.
I'm not one to object to have a cat living in the building. I think it's a good idea and I encourage that everywhere. So just saying, I certainly bring in a litter box if that was.
I have a cat that is eligible for that. We'll do an application process, make it fair.
Is it a Pablo homeless cat?
Homeless cat.
Oh, okay.
Morning, John. Come on in. Morning, Dan.
Good morning, Mike. Good morning, everyone else.
Good morning.
I think we're ready for you, John.
Okay. What's that? Oh, okay. I think so. Okay. Today we're here to look for approval for task order 122. It's the second phase of the dental clinic in Polson. The first phase was adding the nitrous oxide. So this phase is, not sure what page it's on, but this phase includes doing the remodeling the offices, the Henry Sheen Plumbing with their specs for their sinks and faucets and all that good stuff, and HVAC and the electrical. And that's for a total of $202,682. Gary Pitts has been the spearheading this. And he's done a fine job on getting that dental program up to, keeping it up to date. And I know they run a lot of people through there, and that's why we're doing this in 2 phases. Because just to keep up with the work that they need to keep doing, keeping people moving through there. But that's what we're looking for today, approval on the second phase and finishing it out.
Go ahead, Carol.
I'll make a motion. I've watched this process of, now when they started with the young kids and doing major work with the young kids, now they're moving up into the adult. And I think this nitrous oxide probably would have prevented me from going to Missoula to have a bone or a tooth that was stuck way down in there from having to go down there. So I think it's an excellent, and I've even talked to, a lady from Fort Peck, oh God, her name skips me. Anyway, she was so impressed with our dental program because they're direct service. And she comes and looks at our dental program and she couldn't believe, and now I think even Fort Peck was talking about looking at self-governance and, that's something that they probably should have done a long time ago, but we don't tell tribes what to do. So, but mainly it's because of clean audits is why you can do that. But I really feel it's, just our program just continues to grow and grow and grow and look better and brings in a lot of revenue. So I'll make the motion to proceed with this request.
I think a lot of that credit does need to go to Gary Pitts also.
Exactly.
Because he has worked hard on keeping us updated with all the newest technology and everything. He's done a wonderful job.
We have a motion by Carol to approve task order 122, second by Tom. Oh, go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I support this wholeheartedly because it's one of the services we do well. And I go to the dental programs privately and just, we need to provide more services. And, anyway, my question is that there was some issues with the building up there. It was closed and there was like apparent water leak or something. Could you enlighten us and does that have any complications for this project?
No, there was a sink added in afterwards. I don't know when. And anyhow, it was hooked up to the storm drain with a rubber boot instead of PVC. That's all been corrected now. That big storm let us know that it wasn't hooked up right.
So the plumbing was
So
out of code then?
yes, it was. And it wasn't sewer, which was actually a lucky thing. It was just the stormwater from the roof.
But the stormwater goes into the sewer.
No, it goes into the
City sewer or city storm drain system?
storm drain system,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, not the sewer, right?
So I second the motion.
Motion by Carol, second by Tom to approve, task order 122. Any other questions? All in favor? Unanimous? Thank you, John. Thank you, Dan.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everyone.
Council.
Appreciate it.
I've been informed we have another walk-in. Tracy Carpenter. Didn't fill anything out? Well, we don't know what it's about, we can't really take it yet. So.
It sounds like our attorney from Defenders is over here, so that usually speeds things up.
Well, let's go ahead and see her then. We'll go ahead and come in, Tracy. Yeah. Come on up, Carrie. Good morning. Oh, okay. Good morning.
Good morning, Council and Chairman. Thanks for having me to this morning. Do I have a packet to show them on the? Didn't print the packet page numbers today, so I'm not sure which ones to reference for you.
We're starting on page 28.
Okay. Oh, perfect. Thanks, Martin. The first. Oh, it's upside down. That's why it's, okay, perfect. Thank you. So this morning, my first item is on page 28. And I am getting ready to submit a grant proposal to the Montana Fish, Wildlife and Parks for a, it's essentially, they get an award from the Fish and Wildlife Service every year for Pittman Robertson and Dingle Johnson dollars that they use for a lot of wildlife activities. And so the last couple of rounds of that grant, we've been able to receive funding from that as well. Generally, the only thing that is a little bit different this year with this grant is that they're switching from a 5-year grant period to a year by year. So they're starting to see a bit of decrease in that funding. So being able to fund a full 5-year project up front is getting a little difficult. So they're going to be redoing this annually rather than every 5 years. This grant covers all of our wildlife surveying and inventory flights. And it is a grant where they cover 75% of the cost of those flights and we cover 25%. One thing I've been able to work out with them over the last 2 or 3 years is for our portion of the match, so that we're using less of our actual budget for that 25%. They're allowing us to track and match our personnel time that we're using for our biologists out in the field doing surveys. All of our wildlife surveys that we do, we're able to use that time as match rather than having to pay, you know, the half or quarter out of our contracting budget. So that's really helped us kind of make this a bit more affordable and sustainable into the future as well. This year we are, since it's only from January 1st through December next year, we are asking for, I believe, about 89,000, which will get us through this fall and next December's flights. Another objective that we have that's new this year is we're going to be doing some monitoring for yellow-billed cuckoos, which are a threatened and endangered species. We've already got the equipment for that. We're just putting that in here as an item that, you know, again, our match will be able to be used towards. If there are any specific questions on this grant or any of the surveying activities, I'd be happy to answer those.
Questions? Go ahead, Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Carrie, for continuing this application for this funding that should come to us directly, I'm going to argue for. So, you know, a bit of a history for those that may not know on this particular funding. This is the taxes that are collected on our sporting goods. Every time you buy a bullet, you buy a gun, you buy a fishing pole, it's a federal excise tax. That's what Pittman Robertson, Dingle Johnson funding is. And they have this formula. The money all is collected and they've tapped the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to manage it. And they created the whole program to get states to create their own fish and wildlife programs back in the day. And Senator Mike Mansfield was a critical component of this, but he also separated Montana out in certain ways, but I won't get into that. But they have a formula to distribute this out, and it's basically counting all of your residents, your surface acres, your surface water acres, your licensing, et cetera. It's a formula that they look at that and they try to get where people are going to use the resources back to that area to manage. And under the Wildlife Restoration Act, or Dingle Johnson, Pittman Robertson, it's Fisheries Act too, they never recognized Indian tribes as a direct recipient of that. And so consequently, we created the Native American Fish and Wildlife Society to try to fix this problem, that we could get direct funding from the taxes that we're paying, and it doesn't come back to us. It was only eligible to the state of Montana. We worked for a long time with the state, Fish, Wildlife and Parks, and different bills before the House and Senate within the state legislature. But Adam Brooks has been a very good partner, and he's been creative in finding a way that we could get some of this money directly to us through them. So really what they have to do is they have to front it. And when we come up with a match, that means it's more money coming here. Part of the formula requires you to have a match. And if you don't have money in your state fish and wildlife budget to go after it, you can't go after it. You can only go after so much. When they add our funding in or our availability of staff time, et cetera, like Carrie's talking about, then we can go after more money for Montana. So it's a win-win. I really appreciate that. So it's getting some of that money back to us, although it's kind of a roundabout way. When there's an election like this year, there's a windfall of funds coming into that fund because all the people are scared. They think a Democrat's going to get elected in an office. And so there's a run on ammunition and guns. It's incredible. And so every 4 years, there tends to be a real significant windfall into this fund. And if it doesn't get utilized, we don't put up our match and help the state get that money to us. It just sits, it goes to other places. It's not utilized. So I think it's great if we provide that match. We work with Adam. It's unfortunate it's a yearly thing now, but it could be their situation with the state Fish, Life and Parks funding. I don't know. They're in crisis. So, but thank you, Carrie.
I guess the only question I have is, this is the resolution for it, right?
That's correct, yeah. So there's a resolution attached at the beginning.
It says funding to the U.S. Bureau of Indian Affairs,
I know Abby got that this morning and she's changed that.
and then the certification looks at December, whatever, 2022.
I'm trying to pull that up. Page before.
Go ahead, then.
Carrie, how much are we gonna receive?
Oh yeah, I see down at the bottom. Yeah, we'll make sure that that gets changed as well to 24. I don't usually update that section, the certification, because she adds kind of the votes in there too. But yeah, I'll make sure that says 24. And then your question was how much we were requesting?
How much do we receive on this grant?
So for 2025, we'll be requesting for, I think I had it like 89,000 something, about 90,000.
Okay.
Generally for the full 5 years, it ends up being about 450,000 to about 500,000. So I had our, I'm sorry, this is a long application, so there's a lot of pages, but our reservation, we have divided up into 18 different wildlife management units. And I have a 5-year or an 8-year flight plan that ensures that each one of those are surveyed at least once every 5 years. And that kind of 5-year rotation kind of came out of this grant to make sure that, but some years we fly more like larger areas that cost more. And some years, the areas are smaller, so it's not as expensive. So that annual cost of the flights fluctuates, but so for this next year, it'll be, here's that table that corresponds to the units that we survey here. And so you can see that 2025 is a little light, and so 26 will be a little light, and then 27 and 28 will start picking up with some of those larger pieces. So yeah, it's usually when we do it in a 5-year chunk, it's a pretty good pot of money, but now we'll do it annually. So that'll fluctuate probably between about 90 to probably 130 each year.
Other questions? Go ahead, James.
I'm sorry if I missed it. How many years have we been doing this, Tom?
Oh boy, quite a few years. We worked with Adam. Well, there was some other under the Schweitzer administration. There was some few things that we did that were creative, new things, and then it morphed into this program. I guess that would be since Schweitzer was governor, towards the end of his term, probably the last year of his term. In different ways, it's changed. It's changed over time. They receive about $30 million a year in this federal aid funding for fish and wildlife. So is it correct? Is this what our share should be? The formula is different. You have to have a licensing system. You have to count your, they mentioned your population. It's a formula based thing, and then you have to have the matching funds. So I think our estimate, on a purely long time ago, we were looking at about $500,000 coming to our res each year, if it was done equitably, depending on your licensing and your population. we would get more than other reservations, even though they may have a larger land base, because we have more people recreating here, more things going on in a licensing system that counts. But in the state formula, they count everybody, regardless of tribes. They just count everything, and so we're included in the formula.
Well, I entertain a motion by Martin, second by James, to pursue this funding. All in favor? Unanimous with Carol out of the room.
Thank you very much. I'll definitely work with Abby on that resolution, and then I do have a cover letter that has a signature from the chairman as well. I'll circulate that before I head out. And then the last second item that I've got begins on page 48. Our Yellowstone bison regulation comment period ended on last Thursday, August 22nd. We did not receive any submitted public comments via email, via regular mail. Didn't have any kind of people come in and provide just like audio comments. And we had our public hearing last Thursday from 4 to 5, and we didn't have anybody show up to that to provide further comment. Again, just kind of, I don't know if I added it in here, but a reminder that our regulation, the only regulation changes in the regulations this year for bison was just changing the dates from 23 to 24, and now it says 2024 through 2025. And so then requesting today final approval to make these final and then get them out for print so they can be distributed at orientation starting next week.
Go ahead, Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Carrie, could you remind us how many bison were hunted, harvested by our people last year? It was a significant year, wasn't it?
Last year was a little lighter. The year before we had a lot of the hunts. Yeah, last year I think it was about 100, maybe less. It was a pretty quiet year, again, because we had a more mild winter. They didn't come out as much, but it was the year before that we had the pretty substantial, I believe, about over 450
Okay.
harvests.
I know that in discussion with Chris Jeremiah yesterday, we're looking at the northern herd being the largest it's ever been this year. So it could be a significant hunt opportunity. So
yeah, and I think we are scheduling a meeting with Chris, and so the IBMP folks are going to try to meet with him next week to kind of talk through some of that and hopefully, yeah, be able to strategize for the coming season.
Motion
by Tom to have a change of date. Second by Bing. All in favor? Unanimous? Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you very much. That's all I had today.
Yeah, you could give an update, Carol.
Okay,
Does it need to be an executive?
I don't think so.
Okay.
We're right now checking her mailbox to see, she's been cut off of Medicaid, or she let it lapse, let's say that. So if there's a letter in the mailbox that it's back up, they're checking on a bed in Whitehall. If there is one, we will pay until her Medicaid is approved. Then hopefully APS starts to work on a plan when she's released. And I haven't asked any details about the length of stay, but I think right now what it appears to me, there needs to be a little longer than 30 days. You know, it needs to be 6 months, maybe 9. I mean, I'm no doctor, I shouldn't even say that, but a little longer than just getting back into a place. So Anyway, that's where it's at, and she's a little untrusting, and I just told her, stick with me, we will get things taken care of and stick with her after and get her into hopefully something, maybe a tiny home, I don't know. Jokes, jokes.
Thanks, Carol. Go ahead, Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Carol just brought up, I think, a real critical issue, and that is how did her Medicaid application not get resubmitted, or who's supposed to be doing that? Obviously, you know, I did that for my brother. And if you don't have someone or some advocate or some caseworker doing that for you, it's not going to happen. So she should have never lost her continuity of Medicaid. And now she's without that. So it's an unnecessary financial burden that we now have to bear because for some reason we're incompetent to be able to provide that service to our membership. And I don't know if it's that who we need to have do that, but we can't allow that to fall through the cracks for everybody who's at least once they're on Medicaid, you know, to keep that application going and, you know, look at those folks who would qualify for it. But that's unfortunate that lapsed. And a lot of that was, you know, some of it was a design flaw by the state. And I don't know if you call it intentional, but it certainly didn't stop me from being on top of it and getting my brother qualified immediately. So if you're paying attention and there's a professional helping that person, I don't think that there is any excuse, even with the state's mismanagement of it. So anyway, that's my comment.
Well, I was just gonna say, I agree with Tom, and it just is frustrating to see our folks that get, you know, in these lapse situations, and granted, maybe there's a letter in her mailbox, but you know, she's been in the system, she's been working with the system, so someone should have been kind of on top of that. I mean, even, cause you know, years ago when I was working at Tribal Health, it was alternate resources, and I forget what they call it now, but there's staff at Tribal Health that help you apply for these things, you know, and thank you. And I don't know, I don't know how, I mean, cause we all see her, you know, anytime I'm walking, I see her, visit with her. You know, I don't know how we have 8,000, under 8,000 members. That isn't a very big number. And sometimes in our organization, I think we think it's a big number, but it isn't. It's just, you know, you go down to any major university sports facility and you can stick 8,000 members in there, and there's going to be a lot of empty seats left. So it isn't like we're trying to take care of 1 million people or 350 million people. It's a number that we generally, and it's a small number actually of our folks that are continually in the system, but I don't get it. And I agree with Tom. And Carol, but once we have them on Medicaid, I mean, just as Carol stated, we can get her into, you know, treatment, and Tribal Health has been doing that pretty good. And I think it's been good to see the folks that have been getting into treatment pretty quickly, as opposed to where, you know, it would take months and months and months and months and sometimes never. But anyway, I'm sorry I didn't get to add anything new, but I just agree with the comments, and it isn't like we have a population of 350 million people to deal with. Anyway, thank you.
Good, Carol.
I was just gonna say, you know, it seems like if you deal with Medicaid and there's gonna be somebody that is gonna be cut off, it seems like there'd be a blinking light saying, you know, get a hold of this person. But the second part of this, Tracy refuses to put APS or anybody else to have the mail sent to them so they can make sure it's checked. And the attorney said that, Patricia Hibbler said that. So that's part of the problem too. It's kind of a HIPAA rule where you can't violate their. So we're trying to get Corky, hopefully take her down to get the mail, but yeah, so that's part of it. But I think the end result is not just to get her to treatment, but there's gotta be a plan after. she's gotta stay on her meds. You know, we've talked about this many times. I think this is a fix with that hotel that Patricia's bringing in. I think that's what I can see, but I don't know. I'm willing to work with her just to see if I can do anything different. If I shouldn't say this, if I can't do it, nobody can do it. No, I joke. But I'm willing to work that close with her because I care for her. I used to attend meetings with her, so love the girl.
James and then Tom. James?
Oh, no, I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, the blinking lights should have went off, you know. Tribal Health has everybody who's on Medicaid. We have a listing, it's there. And so it should have been, you know, again, I'll point out my brother, mail comes to me. I get the mail, I get the notice, you gotta renew your application, right? But that medical provider that he's at and resides at was also on top of that. And they're contacting me, did you fill it out? Can we help you? Can we fill it out for you? Because they're doubling down on it and they didn't get any mail. They just know that this is the payer, the primary payer of his, besides me, that pays for him living at this facility. And so, you know, I think the red lights should have been flashing by our tribal health to make sure that those people are, they're working on it. So anyway, or somebody in the social service, I don't know where it would be, but I know the listing is at tribal health, that she's on Medicaid. So, thank you.
We got Jordan. Morning, Jordan. Come on up.
Good morning. Could we do executive for this?
Okay, out of regular back. Go ahead, Carol.
For the tribal credit move or not?
I don't believe we would have to.
Okay, I'll make a motion that do we prove them together? I'd rather prove them individually. I'll make a motion that we authorize the move of tribal credit underneath the financial manager.
Motion by
program,
Carol to
department.
move financial, the tribal credit to under the financial manager. Second by Tom. All in favor? Unanimous? The other move is for the homeless, go to, tribal member services. Unanimous, so motion by Martin, second by Daniel.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, and see you this afternoon.
Should we take an action to create positions for the Elders Advisory Committee on the org chart? I think that's something we should do now. So it's shown that we are thinking about them, including them next to the council. It wouldn't be the elders, it would be an elder representative. KCC elder representative and SQCC elder representative. Cause they're not on there now.
James?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I guess I'm confused. I thought we were just, rather than have the elders committees down in, what was it, down in the tribal support services or something, they were down in the, cause I just remember that both committees used to be right directly with the council instead of, is that what you mean, Len? I got confused when you said one representative from each. I thought it was the whole committee.
Well, when we first did that, there was confusion on whether we wanted the entire elders group to be there, or did they just want to designate 2 representatives from every elders committee to be a part of this? Is part of that, was that discussion? 2 or 3.
Go ahead, Carol.
What I recall, and sorry, Len, if I'm speaking out of place, but I remember the elders committee were on both sides of the council, but I think what the intention was is to put the department head, Sadie and Vernon, within the org part of it. That the elders are still the advisory with the for the council. Is that what that is? It is now, or is it different? What it looks like different to me, it looks like the advisory committee and the department heads are underneath a certain division of the organization.
So on your screen is the previous org chart. And so the previous org chart had the different culture committees reporting directly to council. And then this is the current org chart. And so now, of course, those departments are both under the resource management director. And then I have heard in the past, there was talk about putting the elders advisory committee next to council, but I don't know where that went. And so I don't know the kind of, I don't know how they'd be designated, like what you're talking about, Len. So just a few questions I have, I guess, on how that would
I think we
look.
should.
Did their evaluations. So I guess now those evaluations are done under the Tony. Okay.
Go ahead, Jordan.
Well, it sounds like I have some homework. I can find out what has already been done and find the most current up-to-date org chart, and I'll find that by next week, because the beginning of the month always sneaks up on me, but those elders committee meetings are already next Wednesday and the following one, so I'll find those before that.
Carol.
Nervous, should we take it to the elders committee till we give Jordan a chance to find out exactly what we're looking at? Maybe it's fine, and I would like to be fine with them if
We took care of this and there's nothing coming out of either one that I've heard. So I don't even want to stir the hornet's nest. I would rather just have him check on it, leave it alone, because that's working right now. Tony's doing a great job with both committees. They're both saying that. You know, the meetings are the first and second Wednesday of every month.
Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, thank you. I think what Len's pointing out is that this organizational chart, as described, raises that hornet's nest, and I think we took care of it. So, yeah, probably in that lockbox that you can't get to of the organizational charts or Rick's. I don't know.
Yeah, Lisa's working on, yeah, you're exactly right. So we're trying to dig through those. Yep.
Carol.
I think we're gonna get concerned about, like Len said.
The only question I had looking at this, Jordan, was there a special reason you chose a green plus sign?
Just additions there. Oh, maybe it's, yeah, just been seeing more and more of those around lately, just in my subconscious, I guess, yeah. Yeah, good point.
Thanks, Jordan.
All right, well, thank you guys.
A lot of us are gone first week. I'm gone second week too, yeah. We'll look at it, see if there's a quorum or not. Yeah.
well, I'll just include it in here. I'm
Okay.
ready to do it all, Mr. Chair. If I could, I'll make a motion.
Cool. We're out of executive and regular. Is the recording on?
You want to make it 10? I'll yield to my little guy right next to me.
Your work son?
Go ahead, Martin.
As crazy as it is, I was called that my whole life. So I'd make the motion to accept this plan of action with the changes mentioned and with option 2 included. That was the only other change you wanted, right?
So the motion is to go forward with the option 2 as presented here with, the addition Martin made in terms of that what was it?
I don't know, how to,
Federal guidelines.
no, this is that the house isn't able to be fixed.
Right.
I mean, condemned is, yeah, some other word than condemned. It's probably not as,
Can't be condemned because you said they weren't condemned. The value of the house. Yeah.
yeah, if you can wordsmith that up, that's kind
Yeah.
of where I'm going with. I think, yeah, you guys
A
understand.
motion by Martin. Go ahead, Danielle.
Were we gonna add the three that were already told into that and give that approval, or would that be separate? Those. Next one.
Do I have a second? Second by Tom. All in favor? Got everybody, Lynn? Lynn's in, unanimous. Go ahead, Carol.
Second motion would be to proceed? Or does that include, now that they have? That's okay.
No, it's doing it on its own.
So what I understand is as the first motion was on the eligibility requirements, that Chairman Charlo was agreeing to the eligibility requirements as we laid them out, plus assuring that the value of the repairs is much greater than the value of the home, and then also looking at the income as adding to those eligibility requirements. So that's what I understand as the first motion. The second motion I understand is an approval of the 10 homes that were allocated to those individuals last week, with approving the alternative list should any of those individuals decline a home. And those were all prioritized in order as how they would move up. That's what I understand the second option, or excuse me, second motion.
Martin?
They're on the list.
And to clarify that, I don't want to approve that second list, the alternates, because there was one on there that said no application. So I assume they hadn't put an application in. Some of those aren't homeowners. One of them in particular lives with their parents. So I don't want to approve that secondary list. Or, I mean, I'd prefer it not to be included so I could actually vote for this, if possible.
Understood. So well, I have to have a second to it as defined without the second, the alternates, without the alternates. So the second motion is to award the 10 houses as was indicated according to the primary list of recipients and the 3 dedicated to whatever you call that. That's Carol's motion. And only that part. No alternates. Bing seconds it. Any other discussion? All in favor? 1, 2. Are you in favor, Martin? 2, 3, 4. Jimmy? 5, 6, 6, 4, and those against? Danielle? Jimmy? Martin? So 6-4, 3 against, that's Danielle, Jimmy, and Martin. Go ahead, Martin.
Now thinking back on my original motion, the dates that were in there, I don't know if that muddies the water, if that's what specifically we approved, because there's dates to advertise and all this other thing. So if we're not doing all of that, which now we're not, that makes it what we approved kind of confusing. Right?
The motion, your motion as restated by Patricia does not have dates in it. Totally eligibility. Go ahead.
So based on changing the eligibility now, that puts the onus back to DHRD to go look at that original list, right, that you just approved in the second motion, to make sure that they meet these new eligibility requirements, because we did not, as you stated earlier, look at any income requirements. So we're going to have to go back and look at that. Most of them are probably going to meet it, honestly.
I didn't think, Mr. Chair, that my motion included that we go back and now look. I thought it was to award the individuals who originally thought that they were going to receive it to get it and move on. Okay, so I have a third motion, Mr. Chair, if we could.
Well, no, that your second motion is what you just said.
Yeah,
It is. What's your third motion?
third motion is to show interest in that place in Polson, what's it called? Flathead Lodge. The reason why I'm saying this, I think this place is gonna go fast. And if we don't show interest in 2 weeks, I think it'll be gone. No, I wanna name it.
No,
No,
I
of
mean-
course, yeah.
I mean, we don't want to negotiate against ourselves with people, you know, like, you know what I'm saying? Let's just keep things that we're buying off the record.
We have a motion to look seriously at the property Patricia brought up.
We looked at it during the pandemic as a place for homelessness, and yeah, I fully support getting it.
So is that a second? All in favor of looking seriously at the hotel? Unanimous. Shown interest.
Can, may I?
Patty, just a quick question. So are we able to utilize, third-party funds to develop that property once we acquire it? Or I should say further development?
I can look into that. I would say yes, because it's got very much a health aspect to it. There also is funds in that set aside for that we could use. Chair, if I may ask a question, what's the definition of show interest? My definition of purchasing a property is to get a buy-sell in place. Is that what we're talking about? That's the only way to tie up any property so that somebody doesn't buy it from under you, is to get a buy-sell in place. There's still several ways to get out of it if you change your mind.
I think
But that's the
maybe-
only way to move forward, and lock it up for any other offers that may come in.
To get with Mark and make sure that we have an amount we're gonna offer, because I don't think we're gonna offer the asking price. We're gonna negotiate, correct? That's where it all starts, is showing interest and negotiate.
So I did all of the work and negotiation on the assisted living center, the retreat. So I will tell you when it was advertised previously, it was at 2.4 million. The seller has said 2.2 million. Our realtor has said we could probably get in for 2.1 or a little under.
I fully have confidence that she can negotiate this. Lands has not shown that ability to do things like that.
Go ahead, Carol.
The Constitution has a process in place about lands, about buying land. We have a department that's set up. I'm not saying they're the best or anything else, but we need to also make sure all Ts are crossed and Is are dotted. And I'm not saying Patricia can't do it, but you know, they are our conduit between getting these things done.
To tell you the truth, Carol, I'm not aware of that in the Constitution. to tell you
Doesn't
the-
it talk about buying land in the Constitution? How come people keep telling me that it's not in there, but I've seen it in there? Maybe I'm looking
love
at
to
a
see
different
it. I've-
Constitution, I don't know.
I've looked at the Constitution a lot of years.
You're the constitutionalist. I shouldn't be arguing with you, right? No, I thought, maybe it's the bylaws. Maybe it's the bylaws. I think it's the bylaws, but doesn't that mean anything to us? No?
It's actually not in the bylaws either, Carol. Anyway, there's a whole lot to looking at the project you have in hand and, you know, Lynn asked about money. Well, Dr. Fox has money if that's the adjustments that have to be made. So that is there. But, just knowing what can go forward would be really helpful. You know, I understand what you've laid out, but, it's not clear how that all would happen and who would do it. So that's what makes me look at it as being, looking at it very seriously. It'd be nice to have the plan sort of fleshed out a little bit. But I agree that the only way to prevent property from being bought on, out from under you is to have a buy sell. Do agree. Strong, Carol.
If lands is not involved, then what's to say that James Steele finds land, let's go buy it. Whose name is it gonna be in? Well, maybe it should be in James Steele's instead of the tribes because, you know, he was one that showed interest. I'm just using his name. That's what I don't wanna ever get into. That's why we have a lands department to make sure the process is followed, not saying that that's gonna happen, but it definitely could. People were accused when they worked for BIA of things, you know, changing hands kind of crazily. And I don't know, I just believe that there's a process, we should follow it. And if we don't like what's going on down there, hey, it's our job to change it, get rid of them all.
James?
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's my understanding, you will be working with the lands department at, you know, appropriate times, but yeah, and then we did get rid of a department head down there once. That was kind of a, I don't want to talk about that one, but yeah, anyway.
Go ahead, Patricia.
I'll just say that when we purchased the retreat, it was not done without lands. So lands was very much in process. I was in discussion with them all the time. They felt it was more of a tribal health activity, but they guided the process, worked with legal, we went through the entire process the way that it was outlined for purchase of any property. My goal was to try to move things forward as quickly as possible. We purchased it in 60 days, so we didn't lose it. That's the goal, I think, when you're purchasing fee property, especially things that are a good deal and it's something that the tribe wants. It meets our mission and vision and our services that we need to move at the best pace we can to make sure that it happens.
Then it sounds like we need a motion to enter into a buy-sell agreement. And maybe we should talk about an offer and executive about or just let her do the negotiating.
Other thoughts? Carol?
In the past negotiations, Lynn, you probably remember this, we'll just tell her this is where we'd like to see you at and give her that authority to move forward with negotiations. And I like Martin's 1-9 to start, but no, sir, they go through this and check it out. Too technical.
So is there a motion that's necessary or not?
See, that's what I'm trying to, I don't know.
Go ahead, Teresa.
Since this doesn't have anything to do with me, can I be excused?
You may be excused.
Thank you. You guys have a great weekend.
You too.
What, Tom?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think, I always reflect back to the Fish and Wildlife Division and acquiring parcels and allowing our staff that aren't part of the Lands Department to work on this. And so I think, I hate to lose it like we lost the Amish building down in Mission, but I think we need to pursue. It's within the budget parameters we already have. So I think it's probably, the real estate's dropping. I think that's it. I think there is an opportunity to get it lower. So I would have the confidence in our staff that are the proponents of this to negotiate to our fullest and best ability. So if we need to do a buy-sell agreement authorization, I would support that right now.
Go ahead, Len.
Yeah, I totally agree with Tom, and I would just, make the motion to proceed with entering into a, buy-sell.
Motion by Len, second by Tom. All in favor? Carries, unanimous. Good afternoon, folks. Sometime, I'm gonna be here. We've done this, we've got one more. Yeah, it's not pressing. Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, come on up. Afternoon, Chelsea. You're up.
Good afternoon, council.
Finally,
we have-
sorry for the delay.
No problem. Sorry you had to work through your lunch. So I think we have here the some folks who are with the Coalition for a Clean CFAC. And you had asked, or they had, I think they had offered to come speak with you, and I had asked if you wanted to speak with them, and you agreed. And so here is the meeting, and I'm just going to turn it over to them to introduce themselves, and then I think they have a presentation for you. And then we'll follow, that can be followed by any questions. So I'll turn it over.
Thank you, Chelsea. Good afternoon, ladies. As you speak, if you just hit the button that's right above the talk on the microphone next to you, that'd be great. And I'd love to have you introduce yourselves.
Thank you. Am I doing that correctly? Okay,
Exactly right.
okay. Oh, you don't have to hold it. I see that now. Okay, thank you for the instructions. So Chairman Dolson and Tribal Council representatives, my name is Shirley Folkwine, a member of the board of the Coalition for a Clean CFAC. And thank you for allowing us time to provide this long overdue update on our work. And I am so honored to be in this gorgeous, beautiful building with you all today. I just always zoom by out on the highway, never knowing what's in Pablo. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. I want to give you a little bit of a backstory about the Coalition for a Clean CFAC. The coalition came to be shortly after some of us attended the EPA's public hearing in late June of 2023 in Columbia Falls and learned of the proposed plan that CFAC, Glencore, and the EPA had for the cleanup of the Columbia Falls Aluminum Company Superfund site. We quickly formed the coalition, whose mission is to secure the comprehensive cleanup of the Columbia Falls Aluminum Company Superfund site for the health, enjoyment, and economic benefit of the local community and the protection of the Flathead watershed. We then organized a letter writing campaign encouraging public comments regarding the proposed plan, in which over 150 letters were submitted to the EPA, the great majority requesting removal of the toxic waste to off-site facilities. This followed by a petition drive in which over 2,000 residents and 13 organizations representing many thousands of local residents, as well as local government and legislative bodies, asked the EPA to delay their record of decision to allow for time for the public to conduct a thorough investigation of the plan. After coalition members met with EPA officials in Helena, participated in additional Zoom meetings, and throughout the summer, this past summer, in the Glencore-sponsored public meetings in Columbia Falls, the EPA faithfully followed through with their offer and provided the coalition with a technical assistance services for communities grant, fondly known as TASK. It provides assistance to look for critical gaps in information or report in reviewing the adequacy of the data or conclusions within the principal responsible parties' technical documents, which support the current proposed cleanup plan. The research and findings that the coalition reaches, we hope, will lead to a revised and more acceptable cleanup plan, benefiting not only the local community, but downstream users as well. Already, we are seeing some important issues that deserve additional review. To share this information, the coalition held 3 public meetings just 10 days ago, August 20th and the 21st in Columbia Falls, with our task advisor, who was on hand to help discuss the data gaps and concerns we have regarding the current plan for cleanup. As you know, Glencore, CFAC, and EPA have proposed a slurry wall to indefinitely contain toxic and hazardous material as the best possible option for the Superfund site. Our investigations, while limited in scope and understanding, rely on common sense and high regard for human health and the environment. Our concerns are based on Glencore, CFAC, and EPA's own limited understanding and characterization of the waste. A few of those concerns include the unknown exact amounts and locations of the hazardous material, the unknown longevity and efficacy of a clay wall designed to hold carcinogens such as cyanide in perpetuity, this being a major concern for us and the communities involved. Additionally, the clay wall will not be keyed into a solid bedrock foundation, but rather tied into glacial till of varying porosity and permeability with unknown record of long-term success. The subjective nature of EPA's ranking for alternative remediations, such as the community's preferred option of off-site removal, which strangely scored similar in long-term effectiveness to that of the slurry wall, even though containment without treatment serves no long-term purpose at all. So we're questioning their ranking of their different alternatives. And finally, the environmental risks associated with benthic invertebrates such as stoneflies, which forage amongst the contaminated soils along the riverine seeps, which has the potential to impact threatened bull trout and West Slope cutthroat trout who feed on them. And Mary Flowers, in just a couple minutes, will be going more in depth into some of those concerns and some of the findings that we have already come up with. As our list of concerns grow, we welcome you to identify your own concerns for our task advisor to investigate and invite you to join informal meetings to share your thoughts. It is our aim to compile these ideas for future public presentations to inform the broader community and to come up with a better plan for remediation that generations to come will benefit from. Our next public meetings are scheduled for September 18th and 19th in Columbia Falls, and we will be addressing water quality and wildlife. In addition to our task, EPA encouraged us, and we have applied for a technical assistance grant, or a TAG, to provide us with funds to support further independent third-party investigation. Unfortunately, we in the public were recently blindsided by both the Flathead County Commissioners and the Columbia Falls City Council when each voted to change their initial requests for delay in the record of decision and approved letters asking the EPA to move forward with the proposed cleanup plan. We hope you will recognize with us that if EPA were to follow the city and county's letters, it would shortchange the task and tag processes and limit the opportunity for the community, including downstream users, to better understand the plan. It would also undermine the EPA's ability to build trust that the plan truly protects our health, our environment, and our economy. We recognize that the Tribal Council is following through with its own efforts to protect and reclaim historical damages to Montana's natural resources through the Natural Resource Damage Program. We appreciate and respect your request to the EPA to delay the record of decision, while you also take necessary time to study and provide comment on the proposed cleanup plan. For our part, the Coalition for a Clean CFAC will continue to act in good faith to seek ways to reciprocate the support and common interests shared by the Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribes. We look forward to continued dialogue and are honored by the time you have given us to share today. Thank you. And I do have a handout which reflect these comments that I have just made. I don't know what your practice is. Should I hand them out to each of you, or how do you do that?
Yeah, we can get them handed out.
Hand it, okay.
John will do it.
Oh,
I'm sure he will.
where are you? Okay, thanks.
Can I send these to you?
Okay. And with that, I will introduce Mary Flowers, who is also part of the board of the Coalition for a Clean CFAC, to continue with her comments.
Again, thank you for this opportunity. I'm passing out a, excuse me, a series of images that were part of a longer PowerPoint presentation we did at our community meeting. And I just want to give you some visual follow through on some of the points that Shirley has already raised for you. So when those get around to you, I'll start with that. But I would say that we have been fortunate to pull together a small board that has been meeting weekly with our task advisor, giving her numerous assignments to help bring back information to us. What the task advisor does not do is recommend recommendations that we should make or positions we should take. They don't endorse any of the things that we as a board approve. But what is tremendously helpful is that they can find information, and there's some 10,000 pages of documents that you have to wade through to answer a question. So having that help is tremendously important, and we want to make sure it's available to you if it's of value as well.
Go ahead, Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Shirley and Mary and the third person,
Jennifer.
Jennifer.
Thank you.
I just want to personally thank you for stepping up as concerned citizens and community members and recognizing an issue and trying to do the right thing. So I just want to congratulate you and thank you for that on behalf of our tribes and our waterways and our fish and wildlife resources. And thank you.
Thank you as well. And I would add that when we initially started working with the EPA, they saw this as a Columbia Falls issue, that their outreach and their contact should be in the Columbia Falls community. And we very quickly said, no, this is a watershed issue for us, and that all of our communities are involved. And so our outreach has been to each of the cities, the county commissioners, and to you as well, because these are issues that do affect us all. So if I can start with you, this first image is of the site itself. The area within it's kind of outlined as a red triangle, is what is officially designated as the Superfund site, and it's about 1,300 acres. The larger yellow area is the area owned by Glencore or CFAC. The area there to the south has been put and donated into a conservation easement. It's about 700 acres there, which was a the community raised money to help put that easement in place, but it doesn't secure some important wildlife as well as water quality areas. So if we go to the next page, this is an image that shows the decision units that EPA and Glencore identified as units for treatment. This kind of hatched blue-lined area right in the center is where that plume of groundwater contamination currently already exists and has been existing for quite a while. The two yellow areas there that are the West Landfill and the West Scrubber Pond, kind of in the center of that image, is the primary area that is being proposed for the slurry wall to be built around. It does not include the area, the center landfill, which also has significant contamination. And so one of the comments that we and others made early on, if this slurry wall goes forward, it should encompass that area as well. However, we have come to the conclusion that the slurry wall is not the right solution, and I'll talk about that a little bit more here.
But I want to go to the next page, which shows you the slide or the chart that looks at the alternatives that were were presented by Glencore and adopted by EPA. So this is their tentative ranking of the 6 alternatives. They chose alternative 4, and alternative 4 is the containment, capping, and encompassing with the slurry wall. It ranked, if you go over to the forest column, 77, so it ranked the highest of all the alternatives. We are recommending tentatively, and we are looking for input from folks like you and the community at large, that the EPA consider alternative 4, which essentially involves building an on-site hazardous waste containment facility. I'm sorry, number 6, thank you. Number 6 also ranked very high, but it was not chosen. And I'm sorry, this chart cut that off, I think, so. No, it's there, yeah. It's in the first block of, on the chart there. It ranked 42 as opposed to 77. But when you look at the way these rankings were done, it was given a 0 for cost. Whereas the slurry wall was given 16 for cost. What we've asked our consultant to help us do is to understand what's the basis of these numbers. And in our meeting yesterday with her initial set findings were, and we've been told by EPA there is, this is a fixed set of criteria that has to be followed for every Superfund site. But in going back through the Superfund law, we're finding that's not the case, and that these criteria get developed site-specific on each site. And what we don't know and what we're now looking for within the documents is how did they evaluate this? What is the standards that they use to rank these differently? So that will be a very important additional finding coming forward that we will be looking at. In general, I wanted to just say that we still believe that offsite hazardous waste, the removal to an offsite hazardous waste facility, and the closest one to us is about 500 miles away in Arlington, Oregon. And the city of Columbia Falls had long advocated for offsite removal. In 2023, when we came together, we supported that and called for offsite removal. But there's been tremendous pushback from EPA and from Glencore that is too costly. And all of a sudden we started to hear that it was too dangerous, that the materials were explosive, there was too much risk to workers. And yet when we went back and did a word search in some of the documents, explosive was only mentioned 1 time in all of the supporting documents. And so we are again looking at that, and as I'll talk about in a slide coming up, we also see that their own preferred alternative involves moving a tremendous amount of the other waste outside of the 2 landfills and consolidating them. If they can remove that and they don't call that out as too dangerous for workers, then we believe that moving this waste is a possibility. Yes.
Where were they planning on moving it?
So I'm going to come to that in just another couple of slides.
Okay.
If you, If I don't answer it, ask me again. Um, we also believe that they don't really know what the volume of the waste is because they haven't done that work to really quantify it. And without really having a more accurate ability to quantify that waste, you can't really estimate what the cost is to move it off-site. And so we think there needs to be more sampling for that. In the research that they did looking at, and some of this is in the press release handout that you have, they looked at, I think it was 48 different slurry wall applications around the country. Only 4 of those were in glacier till soils like we have here. Of those 4, 3 were anchored in bedrock, and only one was, I'm not sure if we know what it was anchored out, but the fact that these slurry walls cannot be, potentially not be anchored securely is one of the issues that we have a lot of concern. And of those slurry walls that they provided examples of, I think it was a quarter failed within 5 years. And because it's a new technology, we really don't know how long a slurry wall will last. And because they're talking about containment rather than treatment, those walls would have to last 100 years or more to contain it. So that's one of our concerns. And then, as I mentioned, you know, while there are issues with hazardous waste and removal, one of the individuals that's on our board just happened to work in the mining industry for the last 10 to 15 years, and she worked on cyanide removal. And so she's providing us a lot of insight into what is possible in terms of treating and working with this material. So if we go to the next page, it's an image of a hazardous waste landfill. And you were probably well aware of this, but for the public in particular, we wanted them to understand the difference between a solid waste landfill and a hazardous waste landfill. So a hazardous waste landfill has to reach very stringent federal regulations. And that's what's called for in Alternative 6, building an on-site facility which is high and dry above the groundwater. It wouldn't be in these, within a slurry wall where there's no bottom to those landfills. It would be triple lined. It would have leak detection. It would have gas monitoring. It would essentially be the same thing, that same type of facility that if we ship this waste off-site to Arlington, Oregon, it would essentially be the same, but a much smaller facility on-site. There are issues with locating it on-site. There are earthquake issues in the area that we want to look at more closely. But at this point, it's a tentative recommendation because we think the most important thing is the permanence of how this waste is contained. And if we can't get the EPA to approve a plan to move it off-site, we believe this is the most permanent and effective solution. So the next slide here shows those center landfills, and it shows hypothetically if they put an on-site facility, that yellow square is where it would be. That is essentially where the existing buildings are that they took down. And we know that under those buildings are still large tunnels that are so large that you can walk through them, that have not been filled, have not been addressed in terms of the drainage that is going into that area. So we don't think that that's the right spot, but we don't know what the right spot is. But we are raising that as an issue, and also the fact that if this facility was built, it would have to be conditioned so that Glencore could not take outside waste to it. It would have to be limited to just containing the waste that is on the site itself. This next slide is the one that you were asking about. So the areas that are the darker hatched yellow areas, those are all areas in the preferred alternative number 4 that the EPA is recommending that would be excavated and moved into that center gray area. And some of these areas, particularly Area B, the old drum site, has really a significant amount of hazardous waste. Some of these areas, it really hasn't been identified what's there, but they're all planning to excavate it and consolidate it. The idea being that you have everything in one place, but you're adding to the toxicity in that one site where there is no liner at the bottom. So, did that answer your question? Okay. The next slide here is one that was done by the Montana Bureau of Mines and Geology of the aquifer underlying the Flathead Valley coming down to Flathead Lake. The real important point to recognize here is that this aquifer is like 3,000 feet to bedrock under the Columbia Falls area. So there's no way they're going to be able to tie a slurry wall into bedrock, which is one of the criteria for the success of a slurry wall. What they are proposing on the next slide, and this is a slide that was part of the TMDL, total to maximum daily load analysis that was done, I think by maybe DQ, I'm not sure who did this diagram. But it shows the aquitard in this kind of light tan area up here. And it models what a point that we've been trying to make is that this is a clay layer. It's pretty dense, pretty hard, but it's unknown, the thickness in different areas. There are gaps in it. There are perched aquifers in it. And to tie your slurry well into that is problematic. So that's another issue that we're raising. This next page is part of the press release, and it just gives the reasons that we felt that an on-site hazardous waste containment facility would be the most protective of all the options. It's much less expensive than the off-site removal. The distance to remove the material is much shorter. It's protective of groundwater as an on-site solution, which the slurry wall is not. It's high and dry in a certified protected hazardous waste facility. And essentially, we feel that that alternative 6 would be a much more secure and long-term solution, that excavation under alternative 4 would not have been considered if it was too dangerous to move material. And then the last image here is an image that shows the movement of the plume. So there is an existing groundwater plume that is moving towards the Flathead River. Is probably, next month when we do our presentation, we hope to be able to focus a lot more on this existing plume. Because one of the things that the chosen alternative 4 does not do is really talk about how they're going to address the existing groundwater contamination. And for fisheries in the river, that's a huge issue that the community needs to have more confirmation of how that's going to be addressed. So in kind of a pictorial sense, that hopefully gives you some images of the issues that we are raising and that we are concerned about. We would very much like to know, and you know, after you've had time to digest what we've presented to you, if you have additional questions, if you would like us to sit down with anyone on your staff, if you'd like to raise additional issues, we very much would like to incorporate. We are all, myself, I'm a community organizer. I'm not a scientist, but let me tell you, I'm learning an awful lot about cyanide and how all of this works. And I'm good at asking questions. And so I think that we are uncovering some important aspects of this plan, but we're always better when we have more voices at the table. And so we invite you to participate, and we're glad to come down again. Whatever needs to make that work, we're glad to work with you. Thank you. And I'm glad to answer questions on this.
Thank you for all that. Miriam, James has a question.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate you all coming and appreciate your diligent work on this definitely important area of our community and our Aboriginal territory. You know, I don't even know what the words to say, to think that Glencore makes $4 billion a year, can't afford to fix, anyway. You know, my issues with Glencore, you know, as I've looked up, you know, even recently, you know, I'm pulling it up here as we're visiting, Glencore entered a guilty plea to foreign bribery charges in the UK, basically taking advantage of third world countries, basically strong arming them, getting their way, and you know, causing environmental damages in, you know, South America, and just on and on and on. You know, that their environmental record is terrible.
Yeah.
And it just does not make any sense to me that, you know, our trustee, the federal government, EPA, you know, I think they were in here, what, a month or so ago, and we heard them, you know, and I think there was one of the folks from Glencore, and I just said, you know, your environmental record isn't very good. I mean, even just within this one article from the Department of Justice was 2022, and then another one in 2023. You know, and so I'm just, I really don't trust Glencore to do what's in the best interest of our community or our region or our water or fish or any of that. And so I really value, I think we all really value, you know, working alongside you best as we can with our folks, because we've been battling. Well, Tom has been kind of leading the charge, the vice chairman up in the East Kootenays of British Columbia,
Right.
fighting with Glencore up there. And now we're fighting with them. Well, we're not fighting with them right now, but I feel like we might as well. But, well, we know in Montana the history of the mining companies. You know, they didn't have the dollar was, you know, let's take all of the resources from here and send it to the bigger cities in the country or in the world and leave us with the problem to clean up. You know, and so our tribes have been and have had a long history of battling, you know, big companies and mitigating for the impacts. You know, the Anaconda Copper Company and all of that damage that was done down there from Butte all the way through that waterway. You know, that started back in the 80s and 90s when the tribes started fighting that. And finally, we're able to get, you know, some effort to mitigate for those damages and try to get that fishery and that waterway reestablished. And, you know, we had a meeting recently with the folks down there at the in Frenchtown, and yeah, I don't think, we're not comfortable with that setup down there either with those ponds. And I don't think that's a good option up here as well. I think like what you're suggesting, something where we're taking it out of there, it just, yeah, I know I wasn't comfortable with what they had presented with us, and I definitely don't trust Glencore to, they're not there for our best interests. They really don't care about what's going on in Montana, in my opinion. They don't have to pay, they're living off in Switzerland and New York and, London and those places. They're not worried about the impacts on our families here. The water that we need for our homes and
Yeah.
livelihood and our fisheries and that. And so I sure appreciate y'all's work and leadership on this, and definitely appreciate, John working with y'all and helping us to have this meeting, and very, very much needed and very appreciated.
Thanks, James. Go ahead, Carol.
Gonna probably repeat the same thing James said about elk tech mining in Canada. But I just want to thank you as individuals for stepping up for our environment. If people like yourselves don't do that,
Yeah.
they'll do whatever everywhere you walk in the state of Montana, there is destruction and, going on, and it affects all of us. And you wonder why there's so much cancer and all that stuff going on. I don't know if there's a link, but pretty good indication that there is. I think about the Little Rockies and the, what's gone on over there in, Landusky and Zortman. They
Yeah.
just totally destroyed that area. And no, there was no, anything for the tribes over there that were terribly affected by all that. So anyway, just thank you for being here and being a part of the solution, hopefully. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I would just add in addition that once the record of decision comes down, it's our understanding that there's probably 5 more years of designing this slurry wall, if that's what they choose, or, before the actual cleanup moves forward. While we won't have the same assistance during that time, we will, if we get the TAG grant, it will allow us to continue to have assistance doing research, but we're not going away just when they issue a record of decision, and particularly if it's not something that we are supportive of. We are committed for the long term. It's a lot of work. We need more volunteers, but we're working on that as well. So thank you again.
The cyanide sure doesn't go away.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Lynn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the council. Ladies, I want to thank you for taking the time to come and visit with us on this very important issue. You got an uphill battle ahead of you. You are fighting against corporations that worship the almighty dollar. And they don't take a lot of these, they don't realize that this is our homeland. We're all going to be living here for the rest of our lives. I think it's really imperative that we get as much information out there to the media as we can, especially when it comes to cyanide.
Yeah.
Cyanide that's getting into the food chain. That gets people's attention. I think about I would like to look at some of the studies that show how this is impacting the fish, the white-tailed deer, the elk, if they're finding cyanide in their systems. I think that's vital information that the people of Montana need to know. Because right now this is a corporation that flashes around money, and they don't care about us. No. But I really appreciate the work that you're doing. I'll keep you in our prayers. Continue to have dialogue with the community and, get as much information out there to the media as you can. Cause I think that's where it really hurts them. Is when they start to get negative publicity, especially when it comes to environmental issues. So, once again, thank you for taking the time to come and meet and visit with us on this because, as Councilman Steele mentioned, this is our homeland, our Aboriginal homeland. So, but anyway, thank you.
So we do have a second issue that is separate from the CPAC issue to present to you. And I don't know if you want us to just transition into that or if you,
Does anybody have anything else about cyanide? Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, fellow council representatives that spoke out, and they certainly echo everything that they've said. I found it unbelievable that they're proposing to put in a wall. Unbelievable that you think you can contain this with a slurry wall in this floodplain and alluvial situation. It's incredible to me. That's there's right and there's wrong, and that is definitely wrong. And so I wasn't very difficult for me to say, hey, let's study this and say, this isn't right. We got to be able to remove this, contain it appropriately, permanently. And we're going to use, we always say, a lot of people have this undying faith in technology. Well, sure, that's okay, but let's proven technology. It's proven. This is not proven what they're proposing. It's very disappointing. EPA is part of this. And Glencore is it is the largest mining company in the world. And they are in our best interest at all. They're in good, just like everybody stated, for the money. They could care less about the Flathead River and bull trout and the community of Columbia Falls. I had a cousin that worked at the aluminum plant. And he retired, of course, it closed, but he's dead. He died, I assume it's from collateral damage from working at that plant. It's not a good thing. So, look at that site to see how it killed the vegetation all around it. Yeah. To think about, as a kid looking at that, this can't be right. This isn't good for the river or the people of Columbia Falls or the Upper Flathead Valley or Flathead Lake or the reservation or anything. It is unbelievable that was allowed to happen, and we know better. We need to clean this up the right way because we can't create more of Western Montana. This is all we have. These are our pristine waters, and we need to do our due diligence to make sure it stays that way. So I appreciate your help. Thank you.
Go ahead, James.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I did just go on and sign your petition, so.
thank you.
I was looking up your website. Oh, wait, there's a petition, so.
I would mention because the human health is a major concern of ours, and it's been mentioned a couple of times here too, that our October meetings, community meetings that we will hold on October 9th and 10th will focus on health issues, human health issues.
Anything else? Go ahead, Mary, with your other issue.
Oh, good. So Jennifer is going to pass out a map that we're going to start with to kind of frame this issue for you. And this is Jennifer Tipton. Jennifer is executive director of a community nonprofit, North Shore Water Alliance. And they are particularly looking at protecting the north or the south end of the valley and the water quality issues there. And we have been working closely with Jennifer. So I'm putting on my nonprofit hat to talk to you here. And I'm with an organization, Citizens for a Better Flathead. We've been here in the valley for the last 33 years. And I've been with them that whole time, which is unusual, but I feel very passionate about protecting the resources in the Flathead. So Citizens for a Better Flathead works on land use planning issues, transportation, water quality, and waste reduction issues. And so for the last couple of years, our time, we're a small organization, but our time has been devoted to the CFAC issue and to this issue on the north end of Flathead Lake. And so that's what we want to talk with you about now. This map that Jennifer just passed out, we're holding garage sales and bake sales to raise money to address some of this issue. And so this was a promotional piece at the garage sale that we handed out to people to say, you need to be familiar with what's happening that's impacting water quality at the north end of, at the north shore of Flathead Lake. So if I can start with you on the number one, there's a series of number ones there, but they basically cover a, what do we decide acre-wise?
Altogether, it would be about 280 acres.
Is owned by the Lakeside County Water and Sewer District. And I didn't really understand what a water and sewer district was. But under Montana law, they are essentially autonomous. They, DEQ approves their facilities and then they are self-reporting. And I'm still not clear who really checks on their reporting. And so it's kind of the fox watching the hen house. They were begun in 1988 because there's a moratorium in the Flathead that there's no more surface water discharge from things like sewage treatment centers. They have groundwater application, so spray application. In that area 1B is where for the last 40 years, they've been spray applying semi-treated waste, sewage that they collect from around the lake and the community of Lakeside. The intent was to get that waste away from the lake, which was good. But because of the volume of waste going into this site now, we have additional concerns. And because we've learned that we're not sure who's really monitoring this, gives us greater concern. So what has happened is that a few years ago, Flathead County came into some ARPA funding that was that they combined, and I think it's about $23 to $27 million. And they committed that money to building a septic receiving station that was going to take from 30,000 homes in the Flathead Valley that rely on septic systems. It was going to take the pumpings for those and take them into a receiving station and turn it into compost. They were going to take the liquid effluent and ship it down to this lakeside facility, and they would spray apply it. But for a number of reasons, partly because a lot of the negative press that's come out on compost and the contaminants that use human waste as part of the compost material, the PFAS, the pharmaceuticals, all of those issues in the compost. And the consultant that they brought in doubled the price of the facility that they were going to build in his final recommendations. So the county didn't have the funding to build the system that was being proposed. So they have now gone to sign that contract to that $23 million over to the Lakeside County Sewer and Water District. And the Sewer and Water District has proposed to do, they currently operate and take about 300,000 gallons a day at that facility. That's what they're geared to do. They want to increase that to 900,000 gallons. They would because they can't do a surface water discharge, they are proposing to do a groundwater discharge. That's what the area with the large yellow box is there in the center of the map is approximate where they're proposing to build a series of infiltration ponds that will take the affluent that will have been somewhat treated, but it hasn't been revealed the level of treatment that it's going to get. The permit, if DEQ issues it for this groundwater permit, will say it has to meet these standards, and then we're told they'll design the treatment facility to meet those standards. But we have grave concerns about the very shallow nature of the groundwater in this area. The fact that there's not the kind of testing that we think is necessary to monitor this. We know that in 2010, that the Flathead Lake Biological Station tested 14 wells just above the lake, and found in 13 of those 14 wells elevated levels of pharmaceuticals and personal care products and other troublesome chemicals that aren't even tested for and aren't even regulated right now currently by DEQ. And so we are concerned that now you're going to take septic waste, which is very much higher concentration even than waste that goes through a sewage treatment plant, and that will largely be residential, but we also expect that it will be some commercial, and they haven't revealed that. And we've got industries that we're concerned that sit on septic systems. So concentrating all this waste at the head of the lake is a huge issue for us. They have not, DEQ is in the process of issuing a tentative permit on the groundwater discharge. Once that comes out, there'll be a 30-day public comment period. And that's when we want to be prepared with hydrologists and to really analyze this, attorneys to look at it and say, this is or is not a proposal that will be protective of water quality in the area. I would also, and you're probably well aware of this, for the operation of the dam, you have a flood easement that extends almost up to Wiley Dyke Slough. So all of this property in here is covered by a flood easement. A number of years ago, maybe 10 to 15 years ago, we joined in opposing what was a large subdivision right on the bank of the lake, North Shore, was it North Shore? North Shore Ranch, yeah. And at that time, we had farmers testifying about the soil wasn't even stable for them to go in and farm during wet times of the year because they get stuck. But basically, the county dismissed the significance of that flood easement. We've again most recently made the county aware of it at number 2 and 3. Number 3 is a proposed subdivision with 165 units, 252 units, very dense development, and it sits and adjoins the current Burlington Northern Superfund site where they used to do post and pole and have creosote contamination. And so we argued that this is not the place for that kind of density. The Superfund site there, 15 years after it was established and thought to be contained, that plume moved off site, and Burlington Northern had to come in and buy up additional houses in that area. And we've raised that issue and said that they again need to look at the
the status of that Superfund site that they're proposing to put this subdivision right next to. And Burlington DQ or EPA has just reopened that record of decision on that plant. So how this whole subdivision will shake out, fortunately, we've at least gotten their attention on that, and the developer needs to demonstrate that there won't be impacts. One of the reasons they're saying there won't be impacts is because they're proposing they need a 400-gallon-a-minute well to service that subdivision. But because it will not be within the border of the subdivision, they're saying their subdivision won't impact water quality. Well, that's a issue that we are raising in a number of areas in this, that you can't be putting in high capacity wells that create a cone of depression and draw down the water table without looking at how that is impacting drawing in possible pollution in the area, be it from the Superfund site or from the Lakeside Sewer and Water District and the infiltration ponds and the spray applications that they're doing now. So at number 4 is a subdivision called Cooper Farms, which was the framework for it was approved a number of years ago by the county commissioners, and they're ready to move forward and subdivide. And they had applied for a 300-gallon-a-minute well. And when we looked at that drawdown from that well that they're proposing, it goes all the way up just short of this number 6, which is a high-capacity well for the city of Kalispell. It draws down of estimated a foot drawdown that far out. And so that all is going underneath the Lakeside Sewer and Water District. So when we learned about that, Jennifer and I worked with neighbors in the area to say, we have a right to object to this water right, and to understand if it's going to impact water quality or the existing water rights of residents in the area. So we filed that objection. And we filed a water quality objection as part of that. DNRC is now, they originally accepted our water quality objection, and now the hearing examiner is saying he doesn't think it was submitted correctly. So we're going through additional court process to say you have to consider the water quality of this issue. So again, well number 6 is a City of Kalispell well. It's 10,000 gallons a minute. So the drawdown from that, 1,000 gallons a minute. The drawdown from that, we have not mapped, but we are assuming it reaches well past and underneath, again, the Lakeside Sewer and Water District area. That particular well is one of the wells that tested positive for PFAS, which is the forever chemicals that have been in the news so much recently. Where is that PFAS coming from? Well, the Lakeside Sewer and Water District has never tested for PFAS, but we think it's something that should be done. So we have a objection to the Cooper Farms well. And one of the things we learned, well, before I go there, let me just say that Ashley Creek, that you can see here as number 7, that is the discharge creek for the Kalispell sewage plant, municipal sewage plant. And that permit relies on a certain volume of water being in that creek to help dilute some of that nutrients that are coming through that. But if you're lowering the water table with high capacity wells, one of the water quality issues we raised is how is that impacting the quality and the permit for the Kalispell sewage treatment plant? So going back to number 4 and the Cooper Farms water rights objection that we filed. as we began to get into that, we realized that DNRC was relying on a memo. And this memo has been the substance of prior litigation. I also sit on a board of an organization called Water for Flat's Future. And if you remember, about 10 years ago, there was a proposal to build a water bottling plant in the Flathead. And Water for Flat's Future and a number of residents of the area sued over that, and again sued DNRC, objecting to that, the water right for that plant, saying that it would impact area water right holders. And the Supreme Court took 7 years of litigation, unbelievable amounts of legal fees. But we hung together as a group and we brought that forward. And in the end, the Supreme Court said, this memo that you're relying on is not legal. It was never went through the proper process for peer review. It's never been adopted as rules. And we won that case, which was a huge victory for us, both because water bottling plants are it was proposed to be one of the largest in the West of a bottling plant, taking Flathead water and shipping it out of state. But we won it on the issue that they used that memo incorrectly. So when we got into the Cooper Farms issue, we saw, lo and behold, a slightly different name to the memo, but it's the same memo they're using to say that they don't have to, if your well is in the deep aquifer, you do not have to demonstrate that it will, the only thing you have to demonstrate is that it won't harm the Flathead River or Flathead Lake. But all the smaller tributaries, things like Ashley Creek, things like, in the case of the water bottling plant, there was a farmer who had a spring that they relied on. And we were able with hydrologists to show that spring was going to be impacted by the drawdown of that well. So that was another reason the court sided with denying that permit. So we're again facing that same memo issue. And so we filed a separate suit challenging DNRC's continued use of that memo. And that's important because water rights really need, and particularly with climate change and all the issues surrounding the allocation of water from our deep aquifer, it is not endless. And we are concerned that there's never been a budget established for the deep aquifer. And they avoid that by saying, well, we don't have to look at that unless we can show that it's harming Flathead Lake or the river. We don't have to look at all these other wetlands and tributaries and whatnot. And so we're back in court on that issue. And it's going to be another epic battle to try to address that. Unfortunately, they would like to say to us that we just want to stop subdivisions. We're not out to stop subdivisions. We believe that this is a water quality issue and that if you don't have the adequate infrastructure, and water is a critical infrastructure piece in the Flathead, that we shouldn't be depleting it without knowing what we're doing. So ultimately, we hope the other aspect of the suit is, and it's what happened in the bottling plant, is that we had to prove that it was going to harm water. That's the responsibility of DNRC. They should be doing that. And they, through this memo and through the way they're handling this, they're putting that whole financial burden on the public, and that's not right. The public should be able to object and have reasonable, scientific-based findings that show that there is adequate water available. So I think, Jennifer, what did I miss?
I would like to add, you mentioned how shallow the groundwater is in that area where they're proposing these groundwater infiltration ponds. And I just wanted to add that the monitoring wells that were performed by their hydrologist, the testing that was done by their hydrologist was done from September 2022 through July 2023, when the groundwater was at historically low levels. We know Flathead Lake never reached full pool. It was 3 feet below. DEQ tried to tell me that, well, that captured, spring runoff and all of that. As someone who lives in that area, very, very close, that little star right there. So I'm like right in the middle of Lakeside's facility. Our irrigation ditch every year it floods up in the spring, with spring runoff, it floods up our field. That year it did not, and that is the testing that they're using to give this permit,
Groundwater discharge.
yeah, the groundwater discharge permit. And I don't think that is adequate. I would like to see them do testing on a year that is typical. Every year it floods. The one year it didn't flood up, is when and the groundwater movement changes with the height of the groundwater. And these basins that they want to use for this groundwater discharge rely on the dry, the area just below the pool and to the groundwater. They fill up one pool and then let that drain down and dry while they're filling another pool. So there's a series of like 6 pools, I think. And I don't believe that there's adequate space there to do the treatment that they will rely on to clean the water. Also, they're not taking into account, like Mary said, the pharmaceuticals, the PFAS, any of the toxins. And if they're taking waste septage from across the valley, industrial, residential, they're not considering any of that, and they're pulling it together and wanting to concentrate it all together in the very shallow groundwater just over 1 mile from the head of Flathead Lake. And and not to mention, it is also high seismic activity there in that area of the valley.
So they have told them that they currently have a 15-acre and a 20-acre holding pond there, that they could not build those ponds again because of the seismic activity and the liquefaction of soils there. So another reason they're going to this groundwater injection is that to build more ponds to hold this waste would be triple what it cost them originally to build those kind of ponds. The other issue for this is that they're trying to piecemeal these decisions. So the first decision will be, do we approve this groundwater injection system? But they're not looking at, there's no coordination between DEQ and DNRC on the impact of these high capacity wells that are going in around them. There's no, they're approving the groundwater permit without looking at the overall plan for upgrading the capacity of this from 300,000 gallons to 900,000 gallons for this area. And one of the things they found out early on is they wanted to put most of this new capacity into that groundwater injection ponds. And they found DEQ fortunately said, well, you can't do more than 200,000 there. Yes. Because you're going to have groundwater mounding. There's so much shallow groundwater that if you add that much in that one spot, it will impact surface water. If it can be demonstrated that what they're doing there impacts surface water, then they have to come back and go for a surface water discharge permit. And they're not being granted because of past litigation that's still holding that until they meet till the state meets other requirements. They wouldn't be able to move forward. So it's a complex set of factors, but when you start to connect all the dots, it's like, oh my gosh, you know, we're putting our fingers in lots of holes in the dike and trying to raise awareness and raise funding to actually address this issue. So I guess I do have background information in terms of the press releases we've done on the litigation that we are engaged in, that I can hand out that you can have as a resource, but glad to take your questions at this point. And again, this is an issue we would welcome any collaboration or advice or resources that you have about the impacts in this area. We're all ears.
Thank you, Mary and Jennifer. Martin, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you guys for coming in. I recognize you from all the invasive species meetings, the WCC, the MISC and everything. So thank you guys for helping keep our waters cleaner, and yeah, I appreciate the hard work, and you know, if we can help out, hopefully we will. And yeah, it's Flat Lake is something that we're really lucky to have. So and I appreciate everyone as a community trying to keep it clean. So thank you guys.
Anything else? Well, thank you,
Thank
Mary. Shirley? Jennifer?
Thank you.
Go ahead, Shirley.
I know that some of you know Phil Madsen, who is also on our board for Coalition for Clean CFAC. So we bring greetings from him. We had really wanted him to be here today to be the spokesperson, but he wasn't able to. So he just said to be sure and greet you all.
Well, you ladies did great.
Oh, I think you did a much better job than Phil could ever do. I mean, you could tell him that came from me. Yeah, Phil's a great man. Appreciate I'm certain he would be there to help you and be a leader in these issues. So thank you.
Should I leave these handouts somewhere?
You can leave them right there and we'll
Okay.
gather them up.
I'll do that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, yeah. Clean water.
And Mr. Chairman and Council, I just wanted to follow up with you all on the CFAC issue on a brief item. If are you moving into executive next with Melissa?
I imagine legal wants executive.
Okay, so I'll just wait until that time then, and maybe I could just
Okay.
2 minutes do that in executive with you all.
Melissa's up next, and I'm sure that's all executive, right?
Okay. Oh, she was just worried.
Well, we'll go out of regular into executive.